A very warm welcome to our session this morning, which is about the Virtual Grad Expo preparation. We welcome Mr. Amos Kova again. He is with us this morning to share with us some tips on how we can go about preparing for the Virtual Grad Expo or any careers fair event for that matter. We apologize for starting a few minutes late, but we are going now. So my name is Lisa Dazel. I'm from the UNISA Directorate for Counselling and Career Development. And as I said, we are joined this morning by Mr. Amos Kova, who will be sharing with us some tips on getting ready for the Virtual Grad Expo. With me, I've got my colleague, Mrs. Mandu Makanya. She's just going to do the introduction for us. Mandu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Lisa. It gives me pleasure once again this morning to welcome our speaker, Mr. Amos Kova, who is a CEO at Registry and the founder of SAPNA and Amava Talent, and a specialist in youth development. He has worked as a young talent specialist and project manager in various corporate organizations, including SAICA, SIMA, and NetBank. He holds a number of qualifications for business schools, including an MBA. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Amos Kova. Thank you, Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. Fantastic. Okay, so I think just to build on the intro that Uma Makanya did, as Registry, we've built technology that matches employers with grads. One of the things I'm very passionate about is equipping grads or students with the right skills to be more employable so that they can find the right jobs. So maybe just a bit of context also. It's interesting that in 2023, I don't think anybody knew that virtual recruitment or career expos would become this big. Obviously, in my background, when I worked for the banks, I did a lot of career fairs, and it used to be and still is a big thing where people go out to universities and they look for the right grads. But I think nobody knew that it would get to a point where technology would play such a big role in the recruitment of students, to the extent that we will have virtual career expos. And the main reason why we're here is because before COVID, technology actually started playing a bigger role when it comes to HR and recruitment. And I think HR people, unlike technology people, are not quick to adopt technology, because we believe that it's important to have the personal contact and engagement with students. But I think what COVID did, it literally took whatever we were thinking was going to happen in the next 5-10 years and brought it much closer and forward. Hence, we now do a lot of virtual recruitment, and we also realize that a lot of our grads and students and professionals are not necessarily equipped on how to switch and adapt and use the technology to their advantage. So that as a backdrop is basically what I'm going to be covering in today's session. I'm literally going to share 3 slides with a couple of points with you, but obviously I'm going to do a lot of talking around these points. Hopefully we can engage and you can ask me some questions as well. So I thought I would first look at the detail around why virtual career fairs are an attractive offer or option to you. You know, one of the things we must accept about technology or times, when things have shifted and moved, we should adapt and move together alongside technology or technology advancement. The hardest thing you can do for yourself is to try and be stubborn and dig in your heels and want to go back and do things the old way they used to be. We've seen it a lot with companies where COVID forced them to do remote working. And because they were unable to adjust their management styles and their leadership styles and how they assess productivity, a lot of the companies, when things became safer, when the lockdowns were gone, they then wanted to go back to the old. And for me, that's not a smart way of going about things, because you'll find that a lot of companies would have advanced and you moving backwards. So I'm going to share with you 5 reasons why I believe virtual career fairs are attractive and you should embrace it. So number 1, with the use of technology and virtual career fairs, you'll find that the approach is much more targeted than traditional career fairs. Those of you who've been around long enough and who have been to normal or traditional career fairs, you will find that, or you would remember that with career fairs, it used to be chaos. You literally put into these halls with 20 or more stands, you all talking at the same time. It's chaotic. There's hundreds and thousands of students walking through. Within those groups of students, you actually cannot tell who is serious. You've got a bunch of students that are just there to collect freebies, whether it's muffins or, pamphlets or stationery or whatever. And one of the most painful thing for us used to be when you watch at the end of the career fair, the number of your expensive brochures that you've printed in color lying on the floor. So the students would grab these things and they literally throw them on the floor and they walk all over them. So the benefit, the first benefit, and what makes virtual career fairs attractive is that if technology is used correctly, the employer can actually send targeted invites to students, number 1. So only the students that meet the criteria. So you would look at, let's say you recruiting a specific degree, special majors, specific majors, you would invite those students. If you have access to the academic data, you would go as far as saying all the students that are above a 50%, aggregate would be invited. So by doing that, you know that you are likely to speak to the right target audience. Secondly, unlike the chaos in a virtual career fair, with virtual career fairs, depending on what tools you use to engage students, you are likely to find better quality one-on-one engagement, whether it's messaging, whether it's text, whether it's questions that you ask. There are no distractions. When you talk to one student, you pay attention to that one student. So from that perspective, I think virtual career fairs are a lot more attractive. Obviously, we'll come to the kind of preparation that you need to do. Number 2, with traditional career fairs, you would only have the opportunity to meet people if you firstly rock up at the career fair and you build up the confidence to have a conversation. And I'm saying this because I used to remember clearly, we used to, as colleagues, we used to be naughty. We used to say, okay, we're going to stand and wait for students to start a conversation with us. Unlike you going out to them and, desperately inviting, come over to our stand, let us tell you about what we do, or you start the conversation and say, tell me, what you're studying. We used to just stand there and fold our arms and smile. And you would be very surprised how many students did not have the confidence or did not know how to start a conversation with an employer. So the good thing about the virtual career fairs is that it is a lot easier. It is a lot, it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not intimidating for you to physically stand there and want to start a conversation. Again, depending on the tools that are being used, you can simply start engaging people. But what it also does is that it puts the responsibility in your hands to firstly look up the employers that are going to be there. And I'm going to talk again about this under the next slide on preparation. Find the employers that you're interested in that are aligned to what you're studying, and make sure you speak to those employers. So like I said, it puts the responsibility or the accountability in your hands in terms of making sure that you get the right start of, when it comes to this. What it also does is that it make it easier for you to meet the HR people and a better opportunity for you to make that positive impression, because there's no pressure or stress on how do you start this conversation, how are they going to think that you're asking silly questions and things like that, because it's in your face as opposed to being virtual. Any questions at this point?
We've got a couple of questions. Do you want me to read them out to you?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so Nomvuyo was wondering what are good questions we can ask recruiters.
Okay.
Trent said you spoke about being serious. How can you show that you are serious about the careers fair? And Khomotso is asking, how can I make a good first impression?
Okay, thank you. Are those the only three?
Now. Yeah.
Okay, the last one was Khomutsa, right?
Yes.
Who was the first and the second one, sorry?
Nomvuyo was asking the questions to ask the recruiters.
Yes.
Sorry. And then Trent was the second question.
Trent.
Yes.
Trent. I see Anonymous is not here today.
Maybe they're still coming.
Okay, thank you very much. So Nomvuyo, brilliant question. There's a set, or there are a group of questions that you can expect in any kind of interview or engagement with employer. What I've done is that you'll see on the next slide, I'm going to talk about one particular question. But to answer your question, there are a number of questions, and maybe you can write them down. One popular question that always comes up is, tell me about yourself. Now, when they ask you that question, you're not literally going to dump your entire life on them. You're not gonna, you don't have 20 minutes to tell them about yourself, but you will pick what's relevant in terms of your upbringing that is aligned to your studies that you chose and how you ended up where you are, what skills you've picked up, and how best that journey has prepared you to be the ideal candidate for that role. I don't know if that makes sense. So pick what's relevant, find a combination of telling them the important stuff and it being lighthearted. In all our lives, from our upbringing and going to varsity, there are some fun things that you can throw in around the extracurricular activities that you did, positions that you held in societies, etc. So it should be a fun way, packaged well. And this is what I love about this, Nomvuyo. You've got plenty of time to prepare your responses to these questions. So you can literally sit and think about, a couple of bullet points that you want to share, rehearse them either to a friend or in front of the mirror, time yourself, make sure it's a minute or two. And then you can read the audience, then you make it conversational. They might pick up certain things that are interesting, kind of engage you on it, but have your clear bullet points of how you want to share your story. So that's one question. The other one that always comes up is, what makes you the ideal candidate for this role, or why should we offer you the job? So you can Google questions. I mean, I have a link that I used recently for an interview that I did a couple of months back that had 20 questions that you can expect in any interview. Some of them include on how you handle the question on salary expectations, and tips on how you don't give an actual number or figure, but you discuss what you're currently earning and you throw the ball back in their court in terms of asking them what the range of the role is, or how much they the offer is, basically. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think I've given you 3 questions. I'm trying to think what else you can expect. I think other good questions are questions that you can ask around what the ideal candidate is for this role. Maybe you can ask about the process as well. Can they enlighten you on what the process would be after the interviews? But I think that the main thing here is not to have an interview, and then when it comes to the part where they ask you to ask questions, you say you've got no questions. That shouldn't be the case, Nomvuyo. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that covers it. I was also thinking about, trying to get an idea of the culture of the organization. So maybe questions that could help you understand, what kind of person might be successful in the organization.
100%. Thank you so much, Lisa. Can I move on to the second question? I think the second question from Trent is, how serious, or what was the question? How
can you show that you are serious about the careers fair? Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think for the career fair itself, the very first thing is that you need to do your research. Firstly, you need to know which companies are going to be there. If the system allows you to look up the employees or the people that will be there, Trent, LinkedIn is very powerful. I don't know if you use LinkedIn yourself. Let's take one simple example. Let's say you find a company. It's a consulting company. I'm not going to mention any names. And you go and Google that company, either on Google or you go to LinkedIn and you look for the head of graduate recruitment, or graduate recruitment, you type in the name of that company, you are likely to pick up names. So what you can do is that you can empower yourself with the following information. The time you rock up or the day you rock up, you would have a list of the companies that you are interested in that are aligned to your skills and qualification. By doing that, you're saving yourself time, because you're not going to go fluff around and speak to people that are not going to consider you, that are not interested in you. Because remember, this is a two-way thing. If you have the right qualification and you're interested in them, they are likely to be interested in you. So firstly, you have the list of companies. You can take it a step further and look at the people that are going to be there. Because remember, LinkedIn is a business tool. If you link up with somebody and invite them on LinkedIn professionally in the correct way, they will not feel that you're stalking them. So you can go as far as saying, dear Amos, I see that your organization will be at this career fair. I would like to connect with you via LinkedIn. I'm interested in ABC. This is what I've studied. I would like to join your organization. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not being forward. And then thirdly, the last thing that you can do, you can even go further and look at organizational structure. So let's say you like this organization and you know where you want to end up, in which department or division. You look up the heads of those organizations. You look at the clients that they work with. You could also look at the projects they work on or that they're funding. Let's say it's a company that has funded a big, what do you call, a green energy deal that's out there in the media, because some of these things, you will find on the news and stuff. You can engage them on it and say, this is what you're interested in. This is what you studied. Maybe your research was on this. You can really find a way of using the information that's available to talk to the right people within the organization. I hope that answers your question.
Sounds
Cool.
good, Amos.
Thank you. Let me move on to the final question, Khomotso's question about how you create a good impression. Khomotso, I take it you were not at my last session, hey? Actually, you guys can't respond. So the best way to create the right impression is to come across as being prepared and organized, like in the first two questions that I've responded to. The minute you come across as organized and prepared, employers are impressed, or recruiters, by that. Because trust me, Khomotso, they deal with a lot of unprepared students. It's very painful to watch students who ask the most random questions. You can read from their body language that they're not interested. So secondly, after you've done your research and you've got the right questions to ask, you need to look interested. And I know this is virtual, obviously, so you can't see it. So it probably applies more to being to the traditional career fair, sorry. But if it so happens that you engage the employer by camera, watch your body language. The way you smile, the way you talk, the way you do eye contact, maybe the whole, way to some extent you are dressed as well. Obviously, you're not going to rock up in a suit, but just make sure. The reason why I looked like this today is because I couldn't iron. And I'm trying to hide a t-shirt that is not ironed underneath. Obviously, I can't put on a shirt if it's not ironed. So that's the second one. Then I think the most important part of creating the right impression is by having a follow-up on the engagement that you had at the career fair. You either exchange details or ask them for their information, or get the information via LinkedIn and maybe ask them, would it be okay if I invite you via LinkedIn, if you have the name or surname? And how you deal with that follow-up conversation or engagement is critical, Khomotso. That's what's going to set you apart. And you stick to the basics. You give it a day or two and you send them a thank you note and say it was great meeting them. And maybe you can say to them, you have applied for the program or you will be applying, and you start having a natural conversation from there. I hope that answers your question. Lisa, can I move on to the third point?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So the third point, when it comes to reasons why virtual career fairs are attractive is, and I think I've touched a bit on this now, it may limit the negative impact of biases created by your physical appearance. Let's talk about this. South Africa has a history around biases of physical appearance. And I think no one is naive in this group. We all know where it comes from. Now, biases are unfortunately perpetuated in many organizations or environments in many ways. In most of the circumstances, it's unconscious bias. Therefore, as somebody who's coming into the organization, you can't challenge it. You can't do anything about it. All you can do is to make sure you position yourself well so that firstly, you are not affected by it, if it's possible. And number two, once you get into the organization, you don't contribute and continue with that bias. Let me break it down and be specific. So the good thing about virtual career fairs is that unlike the physical ones, when somebody talks to you through the filters of a normal South African who's got the background in their filters, they will somehow show bias in terms of how you look, how you are dressed, how you sound. You'll be very surprised. I remember in the one organization, we had a very interesting debate where we had different types of students. You had those who were very eloquent, who had the accent down to the T, sounded like what we would call a coconut. And then you had those who had a very rural and, normal South African accent. And the debate there was, how does the way students sound affect how we view them, or how smart we think they are, and how intelligent they are? It was a very, very interesting debate, obviously divided views on it, but at the end of the day, it's just another way of biases that are built into our systems. So the point here is that you have an advantage because with this virtual career fair setup, there's less bias. If you've prepared well and you know what you're talking about, the way you look is not going to matter if the cameras are not on. How you dress, or the way you smell, the way you come across matters less because it's a virtual career fair. So that means that you have an advantage here where you could almost say that the playing fields are leveled between you and other students that are physically appearing different to you. I'm not sure if you guys are getting my point. So for me, I think this is a big plus because you will be judged less on physical appearance. So use this to your advantage by preparing well and making sure that you come across as a full package and you engage holistically. It shouldn't end right at the career fair. Do the prep bit before, engage by asking the right questions, and drive the conversation further. Then if you do that, I think you have done justice to taking advantage of the virtual career fair. I'm going to move on to the next fourth point. I've only got 5 reasons I'm sharing, by the way. So the fourth one is that you may be particularly attractive, or virtual career fairs may be particularly attractive to you if you work in technology, a digital field, or if you are interested in remote job opportunities. What I mean by that is that you'll be able to judge which companies are technologically advanced to the point where they really take technology serious, and whether the systems are digitized enough in order for them to operate remotely. Remote working since COVID has become a huge opportunity. I actually don't remember it being this big before COVID. Now we have a lot of companies like Registry, for instance, which I've been with for about 2 years now. Registry is fully remote. We don't have offices. We employ people, people leave, new people come in. You don't meet them in person, you work virtually. And this is really super cool. It's amazing. It's got so many advantages and benefits. The flexibility, you know, the ability for you to do your own stuff on the side, you to manage your hours that you put in. The focus is no longer on being at the office 9 to 5, but it's more about your output and delivery. Are you able to deliver what you agree you will deliver? And they don't care how and where you deliver it. So it's got benefits to you being able to travel. I mean, I remember clearly before COVID, when I needed to travel home. At the time, my dad was ill. I needed to put in leave, and work needed to stop, and I needed to spend time with my dad. But now, if I want to go home, I just leave. And I make sure that when I'm there, I can log on, I can do my work. Whether I do my work at 2 a.m. in the morning or, at 8 p.m. in the evening, it doesn't matter. As long as I attend scheduled meetings and I deliver. So that's a big benefit, especially for, technology students and people that value flexibility. The last one, it's definitely cheaper and more convenient for you to attend a virtual career fair as opposed to a traditional career fair. I mean, look at the training that we're doing now. I'm sitting at home, you probably chilling in bed, or I don't know, what are the chances of you being at work? You didn't have to wake up, iron your clothes, get ready, take a cab or bus, or, jump into your car, use fuel, get to a venue where the employer, where UNISA pays money for you to have water and snacks and muffins. So it's cheaper all around for all stakeholders that are involved. The convenience is massive because, you didn't have to do much. So I think you should then convert that time that you've saved into preparing for the session. It shouldn't be the same as, you having had to get up and get to the venue and settle in, meet new people, be worried about picking up COVID and all of those things. So for me, these are the 5 big benefits around virtual career fairs. I'm open to taking questions again before I move on to the next part.
Thank you, Amos. There was just a comment from Nirmala who said that whilst face-to-face interaction is important when getting to know future employers, virtual careers fairs are just way more convenient. So just also echoing what you shared. We do have, let me just see, there's 3 questions here.
Okay.
So Esme was asking, how do I sell myself to these companies, especially when I don't have experience? And then Sia was asking about the best ways to do research about the employers. What info should I be looking for?
Awesome.
And then Pumla, you spoke about LinkedIn, but she's also just asking, is it okay for me to start connecting with, for example, HR people at specific companies on LinkedIn? Any tips?
Cool. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
Let
you.
me start with Pumla's question. Pumla, yes, it is very much okay for you to connect with people via LinkedIn. Remember, Pumla, LinkedIn is a business tool. If you are on Facebook, you would remember that chances are, if you try and connect with somebody on Facebook, it is not for business. It's for social. That's either somebody that you know from the past, or somebody that you like, that you fancy romantically, because that's what Facebook, that's my view of Facebook. But with LinkedIn, it's different. It's business. If you're going to blur the lines and try and link up with somebody because you like them, you're in for a big surprise because it's not going to go down well. So yes, it's okay. Some tips on how to do it. When you connect with someone, you can either just send them an invite to connect, depending on what kind of person they are likely to accept it or ignore it. But if it's specific to work, and when you invite someone on LinkedIn, you've got that option of customizing the invite. I highly recommend that you use that option, Pumla, because that allows you to customize the message and say, hi, I am Pumla. I'm a final year, I don't know, finance student. I'm looking for opportunities. Or you can make it less about the work and comment on an article that they've written. If they've written a relevant article, you can either comment publicly and follow them or inbox them. There are many ways of getting through to them. If you don't want to do that, I'm giving you a third tip. You can also find a similar or relevant article and share it with them and say that, I like the article you shared last time. Here's another, article. This might be of interest to you. Number 4, you could look at their history, their background, what they do, and you can read by the jobs they've been in, what the consistent line is, and then have a conversation around that, whether it's investments. You could also look at a qualification or a course that they've just recently done, any other articles that they've published. So there are many ways of having these conversations via LinkedIn. I hope that's useful. Now, let me go back to the first question of ask me, how do I sell myself without experience? Remember, Pumla, you are not just made up of experience. The experience comes in, and I take it that you're talking about work experience. There are other experiences that you have. You have ambitions, you have talent, and you have aspirations as well that are linked to future experience or the job. So that on its own is enough for you to sell yourself. Employers are very realistic in their view of students. All employers know that students don't have work experience. We don't expect them to have work experience because where would they have picked up the work experience? The only other time is if you have done some part-time work while you're at varsity, then you can highlight that experience. But in the absence of that experience, you need to highlight your interests, your passions, and your ambitions around your career. I hope that answers your question. And then the last question, Sia, is the best way of doing research on companies. Google and LinkedIn, Sia. If you would like to take it a step further, once you've got the company, you could also look at their, what is it called? Their annual reports. There's a lot of information there. Message from the CEO, what's the focus, what's the strategy, what are the big projects, where have they spent money, what are their views on so many things that are investment related. So I think it's a bottomless pit, actually, when it comes to the kind of research you can do. If you're dealing with big companies, all of this information is out there. You just need to link the people, the organizational structures, the opportunities that they have, and anything that's in the media. It could be as simple as a deal that's out there. Okay. So this section I'm going to cover now, let me just go back. So I think someone asked earlier, I can't remember if someone around, no, it was Nomvuyo. Nomvuyo asked about how to respond to difficult questions. We'll break it down for us. So the question I want to deal with is, why do you work for us? That's a loaded question. It's not an easy question to respond to. Obviously, there are a couple of other ones, like I said. So firstly, have a good understanding of the company. Sorry, based on the research that we spoke about. On your knowledge and the research you need to have done, or you should have done, you must be able to explain what attracts you to this company. And obviously, it will have to be substance issues like the values, the fact that the company through the social energy, clean energy, supports orphanages, whatever it may be. This means that you need to really dig deep about this company. Maybe the values that they stand for, the fact you like their leadership philosophy, all of these things that you can pick up. And by the way, just to add, the other way you can also do your research about the company is to interview people that work for the company. Remember that when you're a student and you're doing research, you can interview people and ask them about so many different things. So if you planned and you're thinking ahead and you want to dig deep into a company, just do a survey and send them out to people. Or, if you connect with somebody via LinkedIn and you send him 2 or 3 questions to respond to, nobody will say no to that. As long as you don't send them a long essay to complete. If it's 2 or 3 questions, they are most likely to respond to that. So think about what attracts you about the company and try and articulate that. Number 2 comes back to the research again. You need to do your research. You need to look at the company's value, mission statement, vision, the projects that they've done, anything that aligns to your experience and career aspirations. Remember we said, who was it? Esme, we said that you don't have work experience, but you've got career aspirations and you've got certain things that you are passionate about. So link those things to the company's mission statement, values, and talk about how you would like to be there. Remember, we've got aspirational goals. Maybe you want to be ahead of a department in a certain division. You want to be a change maker. You want to be, whatever you're passionate and about and aspire to. If it can be linked, or the company can be used as a vehicle for you to become that, show that ambition. I think the recruitment world has changed. Long time ago, back in the day, employers wanted to see people that are focused on their studies, that get good grades, that want to work. Now, the generation that we're dealing with are hustlers. They've got side hustles. They are outspoken about, the environment, looking after the environment. They are passionate about certain things. They achieve well in sport. They do other extracurricular, activities. And those are good things that you should emphasize and highlight. As long as you can show how the company can benefit from you being part of it and using the company to shine, basically, and to be noticed. Let's take the example of being a good role model and what do they call it? Influencer. If you're a good influencer, and I'm not talking about, any influencer who doesn't have the right, the right what's the word I'm looking for? The right cause, okay? Companies would be interested in you because you're a good role model. You've engaged people around something specific, and they believe that for their brand, it will take them to the next level, or it will be a good partnership. So don't overestimate those things. Number 3, find a way of identifying something that aligns. Remember the previous point we're talking about mission, vision of the company, etc. But now you need to look for something that aligns to your personal goal and values and show how you would be a good fit. Being a good fit in a company is all about having aligned values, because you can't go into a company and not share the same passions that the company have, the same things that the company values, that they spend time and money on. If you don't like those things, you are going to be bored and you're going to feel like a misfit. You're going to end up doing things just because, everyone is doing it. And some of us have been there, where you've had bosses on days where they do social activities. You find that they're not really enjoying it. They're doing it because it's a tick box exercise. They have to do a team building activity, but they're not dressed appropriately. They're not having fun. They're there thinking about their ego. They can't get dirty and, involved and things like that. So make sure that your personal goals and interests are aligned so that you are the right fit. Number 4, the thing about the response to this question is that it needs to come across as natural. And I know I don't want to contradict myself. I've said that you need to prepare around these questions, but whatever your response is here, or however the engagement comes across, it needs to look and feel natural. And one of the things that will make it look and feel natural is that if it's true to you and honest to you, if you give true and honest answers. If you're going to try and lie and make up stuff, let's say you join a company that's very outdoor focused. People go mountain biking, they go hiking, and you've never been there, you've never done it. When you try and make things up, people will see right through you. So make sure that you give true and honest responses that comes from a natural place, and people will recognize that, and there will definitely be a link with the people that you engage. Lisa, are there any questions before I go to the last point?
Not at the moment, Amos.
Cool, thank you. So to conclude on this question then, you need to state what you enjoy and what you're passionate about. And that's very important, because remember we spoke about doing research on the company, but you now also need to do research on yourself and do some introspection. What is it that I, as Amos, enjoy? What is it that I'm passionate about? Are there any examples in the past of things that I've done passionately and that I've done out of a place of enjoyment that I can share with the employer, that's obviously relevant in the context of the employment, especially the passionate part? It needs to be relevant and important. So which are the projects that you can highlight that you've been a part of? What is the role that you've played? How did you contribute to the success? How did you display your leadership skills, your team working skills? How did you make your colleagues feel? There are so many things that you can highlight and bring out when it comes to displaying your own passion and enjoyment. I mean, you could say you enjoy working with people, but I think pretty much anyone would say that. Like most students, when you go to career fairs, will tell you that they're a hard worker. Um, I, all of those things. But you need to go to dig deeper, go further than just, I enjoy working with people. How have you worked with people? What are your leadership styles? Read up about those things, do research, ask people for feedback. How do you contribute in a team? What are your communication styles? Are you the kind of person that will take over and just lead naturally? Are you somebody that's observant, that brings other people into the conversation? Sorry, there's a whole lot that you can demonstrate here on what you are capable of. And to conclude this then, in you demonstrating or responding to this question holistically and as deep as you have researched and linked to the company, it will show the employer that you have thought about what you bring to the table, and they would then be interested in offering you the job. I hope that answers your question on this one. So I'm gonna open up the floor for more questions because I had planned to only talk around these two slides. I think we scheduled to finish at about 12:30, but I'm happy to end things at about 15:15 or so. Are there any other questions before I conclude and wrap up?
Amos, there was just a comment from Tyrone. He says that I get a sense that you have to show your excitement for a company so that they can be excited about you. So I think that's quite a valuable insight.
It is. You know, Lisa, one of the most difficult things in companies is choosing between somebody, when it comes to grades, who's got good grades, and somebody who's got probably not such good grades, but who's got an amazing personality and passion. And most companies end up going for the latter because somebody who doesn't show interest and excitement, it's very hard to work with them. You need to crank them up, and you don't know what excites them. So from an HR perspective, it's very difficult to retain such a person and to get the best out of them. Whereas with someone who shows that excitement and passion from the onset, first you click with that person on a human level, which then forms a very strong foundation for you to achieve anything in the workplace. Somebody who's got the right passion and the right personality, you can mold, you can grow with that person, you can easily see what the limits are. The communication becomes easy. You can lead them better, you can challenge them, and you have fun as well. And again, I mean, the one thing I need to stress to grads and students, work is not only about work anymore. A lot of people want to have fun at work. So if you can connect with somebody and click on a human level, half the job is done. Okay.
Thank you, Amos. Nirmala is saying, how does a candidate convince an employer that they want to work in that organization? The job market is tough right now and people just want to be employed and any job will do.
That is so true. So is it Nirmala?
Yes.
So Nirmala, here's the harsh reality. If you happen, and I'm going to make this very specific now, if you or I have been looking for a job for a couple of years, it then becomes less about the hype and the, you know, the passionate stuff, it then becomes a bread and butter issue where you are willing to take any job that comes. And I've seen it a lot with students. Some students in the past, you know, I've experienced, would make a mistake. They would prepare emails of their CVs to be sent out to probably a list of 20 or 50 people and companies, and names of the company or the person. And by that, you could tell this is the kind of student that we're dealing with here. It's a spray and pray approach. They are desperate, or like you say, it gets to a point where you are really desperate and you just want a job and you'll make up things. So yes, it's possible. My view and my take on it is that as hard as it might be, try by all means to first prioritize the companies that are perfectly aligned to you and keep applying to them, right? It will be genuine, obviously, and it will be aligned to what you're studying. Then you have a second list of those that you are just trying and aside of the main list of employers and companies that you should engage with passion and with real interest. The other ones, I'm not saying be reckless and, you know, non-caring to them, but understand that they fall outside your main group. The thing of applying for jobs in Namala is quite intense. I mean, I know from personal experience, I've been unemployed for 4 years at a go. And I've dealt with students, I've, you know, seen the struggle, the plight of students who are struggling to find jobs. It's not easy. So just make sure that you have a plan and you have your A list of employers. Those guys you try by all means to engage passionately, extensively, find the networks, go as far as offering VAC work, free, what do you call it, volunteer work. If they don't want to offer you volunteer work, be smart. Ask if you can join them on the CSR projects. You know, if they're going to paint a house or if they're going to a school, tag along because you can follow them, or ask the person that runs the CSR division and you go. You just never know what doors it's going to open. So it's one of those things where you need to go all out and try absolutely everything. It's a bit like a relationship. You don't know what's going to work. There's no blueprint. It's the same as raising kids. There's no manual to it. But you try anything and anything that feels right, that you think is right, that your conscience tells you might work, and you never know where you're going to end up.
Thank you, Amos. And then we've got a final question for now. Busi is asking, how do you talk about your shortcomings?
It's a very good question to end on, Busi, because we all have shortcomings. Sometimes it's phrased as weaknesses, so strength versus weakness, shortcomings. So firstly, again, in your introspection and in your preparation, you need to find relevant shortcomings to the role or the position in a professional context. That's the one way you can do, Busi. That's the one way in which you can do it. The second way is you could look back historically at any activities you did. Remember, we spoke earlier about extracurricular activities, positions that you've held, and projects that you were involved in. In there, you should find ways of displaying how your shortcomings were exposed or how you learned about them in projects, and then talk about them. So there's two ways of identifying them or approaching them. Then here's the trick. When you talk about the shortcomings, I use the word professional setting and context. Please do not choose hectic stuff like your shortcoming or your weakness is smoking weed or, I don't know, taking drugs. Even if you do, we don't care, but you don't mention that. You find things that you can improve and things that are acceptable. I mean, there's so many examples. Let's say you're not a morning person, or you're not great at timekeeping, or whatever it may be, but it needs to be something that you can improve, and its weakness not being considered as a complete disqualifier in the job. So what I mean by that is that if your job involves, I don't know, hectic timelines and deadlines, maybe don't use the example of you're not being strong at, meeting deadlines or timekeeping or whatever it may be. If the job is flexible, if the organization itself is laid back, it's not a strict 9-to-5 organization, then yes, it's relevant. Do you understand? And then to conclude on that, if you mention a shortcoming or weakness, it should not end at you saying that I am bad at doing X. You should continue and say that I have realized this is my weakness. This is what has happened in the past. However, what I have been doing in the last year to improve it is ABC. Do you understand? So that shows a initiative, and it shows that you are aware of the fact that you improving that weakness or shortcoming will advantage you in the long run and the company. And you're putting measures in place to address it and improve it. So the employer will then see that you're serious. And I mean, they know that you're not going to take a shortcoming and go to the extreme opposite and become excellent, brilliant at it. And that's not what you should show. But you should show that you're A, aware of it, B, and you're working on it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Amos. We've got another question that just came in from Nirmala again. She's asking, how would you advise someone who has been incarcerated and is hopeful about finding employment?
Thank you. Nirmala, what do you mean by incarcerated?
She can respond, but I'm going to assume for now it means maybe somebody who's been in prison.
Okay, I think, thank you. My real question was, does the person have a criminal record? Because that's what's important. Okay, let me answer it from both angles. Firstly, somebody who's been in prison or incarcerated, it first depends what they went in for and for how long. Obviously, if it's something minor, there's less to be said about it, especially if there's no criminal record. Because remember, it won't show until they do your fingerprints and all of those things, and then it gets flagged. So if it's a minor issue and you don't feel the need to disclose because it might not be picked up, then there can be very little said about it. You can also, depending on how minor it was, whether it's the kind of thing that you can joke about now, it could come up in a light-hearted conversation where you did something silly with friends or colleagues after a work thing, and you ended up being picked up by the police. It all really depends on the detail. However, if it's something more serious where there is a criminal record linked to it, it was a crime or whatever happened, firstly, I think it's important to disclose it when you apply. If you know that it's still linked to your name or ID and it's likely to come up. So firstly, you disclose it. And unfortunately, once you disclose it, they're going to ask for context or more information. So in the setting of a virtual interview, obviously you can't do that, but as your virtual career fair, sorry, but as they progress with your application, you'll then have the opportunity to disclose more information. I would say just be open and honest about it. What is also important there is to show the work that you have done on yourself in the process, on improving yourself and becoming a better person, and after prison, what the results have been and how consistently you have improved yourself on it. If it's a friend of mine wrote a book called, she published it last year sometime, called what does she call it? The professional, but it's basically about her journey being in a normal corporate job while struggling with alcohol abuse. And she wrote a story about how she managed to sustain a career while she had a drinking problem. And when she overcame it, how her life has changed. So if it's from that perspective where it was fueled by either alcohol abuse or drug abuse, it's very important there to show the turnaround and the change, because people believe in people that are able to take charge and turn things around in their own lives. And then the second part then is if there is a criminal record, then obviously it's something much more serious. And I don't quite know how you can avoid it. I don't think you can. So the first opportunity that you get to disclose, I think you should. And unfortunately, it will be up to the mercy of the employer then to then see if they want to employ you and whether the crime will have influence, or the type of crime will have any influence on the kind of job that you'll be doing. Let's say you're doing a job that involves money, and there happen to have been a robbery or a crime related to money, then yes, you might not be considered for the role. So I think to conclude, Nirmala, what you need to do, look at the instance on its own merit or the incident, look at what bearing it might have on the job and make a decision. I am available on LinkedIn as Marva Amoskova, I think. Please look me up if you want to have further discussion on this. I'm more than happy to discuss and see how we can unpack it and prepare you best for it.
Thank you, Amos. So that was the last question that came in now. So I'm going to just do a couple of announcements, just share more information about the Virtual Grad Expo. And then we'll end off the session. But if there are any more questions, one or two questions, please post them. We'll just check in on those before we formally end the session.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you've heard a lot of talk, and maybe you are familiar with the Virtual Grad Expo that we arrange, or we actually participate together with most other higher education institutions in South Africa. with the South African Graduate Employers Association. So the Virtual Grad Expo is basically an online event that you can attend, and it will enable you to chat with employers, professional organizations, as well as other higher education institutions to help you plan your next step. So during the event this year, just bookmark these dates so long. It's on the 17th of May, the 27th of July, and the 17th of August. So those are the days that you'll be able to join the online event. There are presentations from the different organizations that are participating in the event. So they share information about opportunities, whether it be career opportunities or study opportunities that you could consider. The event is also divided into different, I think they call them pavilions, if I remember correctly. So for example, there's normally focus areas on accounting, law, science, and then also human sciences. Excuse me. So please bookmark these dates. So the first one is on the 17th of May. We are just awaiting the official marketing material from SAGIA, but please check on my UNISA regularly for information about the virtual event. But Amos shared a lot of valuable information with you this morning that you can start doing to prepare to attend these events. And then just a reminder of further events that we've got planned. So tomorrow we've got a presentation about informational interviews. So somebody asked about, what kind of research you can do, where you can find information. Amos spoke about connecting with people who are in the industry. So tomorrow you'll be able to learn more about the kind of questions that you could ask, and how you could prepare to have those conversations to build your network. Then on the 18th, we've got the recruitment process and what recruiters consider to be an attractive CV. The 20th of April, we're talking about planning for further studies and job search. And then on the 25th of April, we'll be talking about interview skills. So please check the updated information about these events on the MyUNISA events calendar. Then also just a reminder about the Grad Next book that you can download for free. This book has got a lot of information for students. It talks about looking for jobs, starting your own business, CV writing, interview skills, networking. As I said, it's available free of charge. So please visit that web link that we've got on the screen to help you download the book and go through the information, again, just to help you prepare for future opportunities. Thank you, Amos. We're just going to ask my colleague, Mr. Beki Mzobe, to end off the session for us. Thank you, Beki.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and good day all. We have now reached the end of today's session, which was titled Virtual Grad Expo Preparation. On that note, I take this opportunity on behalf of my colleagues and the entire Directorate for Counseling and Career Development at UNISA to express my thanks to our guest speaker, Mr. Amos Kova. We are grateful for the time and efforts that you took to share with our students and also to clarify what is Virtual Career Fair is all about. You also gave the background why Virtual Career Fair and not the traditional career fair that we normally know, where you highlighted the aspect of technology and the Virtual Career Fair being the cost effective. You further answered their questions where they needed clarity. So I would like to conclude by saying that the presentation was informative and beneficial to our students, and I believe that it will encourage them to attend the next coming Virtual Career Fairs, as Lisa shared the details of them. So I conclude by saying, as a Directorate for Counseling and Career Development, we appreciate your time and your support that you always give us. Thank you so much, Mr. Amos.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, Makanya. Thanks, everyone. All the best.
Thank you, Amos. I just also forgot to share with you our contact details. So if you would want to give us feedback or any suggestions about this morning session, but also maybe future events, please send an email to Mrs. Mandu Makanya. And if you need to get in contact with a counsellor at UNISA, we've got an email address that you can use, counselling@unisa.ac.za. You can also book an online appointment with a counsellor, or you could contact a counsellor at the UNISA regional offices to make an appointment for in-person counselling. Our website has got a lot of information that you can use to manage your career more effectively. And our YouTube channel we use to publish recordings of all of these events. So this one for this morning will be available from tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Amos, and thank you, Becky and Mandu.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.